Hi there, my name's Jack. I'm a naturalist, artist, and educator. In this video, I'd like to share with you the practice and process of how to keep a nature journal. You might ask, what is nature journaling? We define nature journaling as the process of using a paper and pencil to engage with nature around you through intense observation and scientific inquiry. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the basic steps of how do you start keeping your own nature journal, and I'm going to show you some basic tools that nature journalers use to get what they're seeing down on paper and start playing with that thing. Right? Let's go. So you might ask, why do nature journaling in the first place? Well, most scientists in the biological disciplines keep some kind of field notebook that they put their observations and questions into while they're working. And so we can kind of replicate this by keeping our own notebooks of cool stuff that we find in nature. Nature journaling is really powerful because it helps to externalize your thinking. It helps to get what's in your brain out of your head and onto a piece of paper. And this is the same concept as keeping a grocery list or maybe a Christmas list. You want to remember all of that cool stuff, so you get it out of your head by writing it down in a list format. Same concept with nature journaling. So today, I'm going to show you how I would use my nature journal to observe things in this beautiful park behind me. So there's a lot of birds around here, and I was recording the process for how I observe a cool little kinglet, and the audio conked out on me. So let's try and find another small bird to observe here. When I'm observing a small bird, sometimes I'll use like a freeze frame technique. And so what that means is I'll get a look at a small bird. It'll be moving around a lot, and sometimes it'll strike a pose. And when it strikes the pose, kind of like this, I will kind of close my eyes for a second and just think about that bird's pose in my mind's eye. And I have a little bit of time to get that pose down before it disappears from my mind. And so that's a good technique to use if you're observing small, fast-moving animals. And so let's see, there's an interesting small bird in front of me here. I'm just going to take a look through the binoculars. Okay, so that's the kinglet, and he's back. So that's the same bird I observed before. So that's a good look right there. So when I'm observing things, I try to use 3 different languages to get down what I'm seeing onto a piece of paper. And so the first one is visually communicating what I'm observing. And so that can be through drawing, maps, maybe even photographs. And so because I'm a nature artist, I prefer to start with drawing something and then put in the other things later. You might be more comfortable with the other 2 languages. And you can also use writing and numbers to get what we're seeing down on a piece of paper. And you can see on this kinglet here, I'm using a mixture of all those. I'll show you how I combine those 3 languages, drawing, writing, and numbers, as I observe this kinglet here. And so I saw a good pose of him. And you can see here I'm using this light blue pencil. This is a Prismacolor Kohl Erase 20028 Copy Knot non-photo blue pencil. It's very, very light, and what that allows me to do is get down kind of a loose framework that helps me to get everything in place for this bird. And so while I have kind of that picture in my mind's eye, you can see I'm using kind of ovals and circles to get down that picture that I have of the bird before it totally disappears. So your drawing's not always going to be perfect. There's always going to be things you're going to wish that you had done differently, but this is turning out pretty good for me. Big thing is to just keep making drawings, and you'll get better at it. Even if you don't have any artistic training or much experience with drawing, you can absolutely get better at it if you just make a lot of drawings. And so this kinglet had a really short beak, so I want to make sure to get that in there. There's a small bird above me. Ooh, looks like it's a towhee. That's fun. So as you encounter different birds, I'm just going to take a look at him through my binoculars. As you encounter different birds, there he goes. You you can kind of jump between drawings. You don't have to finish any one drawing of a bird. So this is an eastern towhee that I'm observing. I was only able to get partial looks at him, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a smaller, less detailed drawing. And so this pencil might be hard for you to see, just because it's so light, but again, that's intentional because once you draw over it with a darker framework like this, with a darker pencil or pen, it kind of disappears. And so it's great for not having to erase stuff. So I'm just going to kind of block out sort of a blocky version of this towhee. And it can just be, you know, sort of like a thumbnail size. While I'm thinking about that towhee, I want to use my pencil to get him down. He had kind of a peak on his head. Sometimes your drawings don't quite turn out the way you want. That's totally okay. You're just using this as a tool to observe better. And so here's where I can kind of bring some writing into this. And so I've used the first language of drawing, and so now I can bring some writing onto my page. You can incorporate writing through you know, sort of adding these little written notes, kind of making it like a field guide. You can write longer paragraphs if you want. You can write poems if that's what interests you. For this guy, I'm just going to show. I just want to show kind of the basic color, so I'm going to write black here, red, brown. Sometimes I abbreviate these just so it goes faster. And I can also add notes about its behavior. And so I'm going to make this tail a little bit longer. I can write white edge on tail. I can write skulking in brush. And I know that towhees, that's kind of typical behavior for towhees. They like to stay hidden and out of sight. Let's return to the kinglet here, because the towhee seems to have disappeared. So you see how I'm just kind of jumping back and forth between different drawings. Let's return to this kinglet here. I want to fill that drawing in. And it's okay if you don't remember everything perfectly. You're just trying to, again, use drawing as a tool to get things down on paper. And notice things that you otherwise wouldn't have noticed. Again, don't worry if you don't have any artistic training. Nature journaling is not about making a pretty picture. I'm simply using drawing as a tool to observe things more closely. Right, and so there's my kinglet. I already added some writing here. You notice also that I'm using multiple drawings instead of making, okay, this is my drawing of the kinglet, this is my drawing of the towhee. I'm actually making multiple drawings so I can get different postures that the kinglet strikes. Alright, so let's add some writing to this guy. So, what else did I observe about him? He was moving back and forth quickly between the canopy and the lower brush. Maybe he's a generalist forager, alright? And so I'm thinking about questions just based off of my initial question. So this is an observation that I made, and then I came up with a question based off of that. That's really helpful for when you're trying to think of questions and you're not really sure where to start. Use those observations as a springboard to ask questions. I will also sometimes use journalist prompts when I'm asking questions. So, you know, the who, what, when, where, why, how. There's all sorts of different prompts that you can use besides those. But I just like to kind of start with my observations and then say, what am I interested in? The point is not to answer all of your questions right now. Just get them down on the paper. I also thought of another question, so sometimes I'll use fun question icons. What does this bird eat in the colder months? Right? And perhaps I can come up with a couple different hypotheses off of that. You see, now we're starting to get into the scientific inquiry part of this. Perhaps it eats mostly berries. Although I think kinglets eat mostly insects, so I'm not sure about that. You can see I'm kind of going down this path of really interesting thoughts about the kinglet just based off of my initial question. And so when I get home, I can research this if I want, or I can observe the kinglets more while I'm out here to try and see what they're eating. The bird activity's kind of quieted down right now, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the last step of nature journaling to fully involve my brain. I've got some observations down here, I've got some questions going. The last part of nature journaling is thinking about things that you're reminded of, that your subject reminds you of, okay? We call this making connections between your current observations and maybe past observations or past memories. I will sometimes just write IRMO on my page and then see what comes to mind. And so the kinglets actually remind me of a chickadee. They're small and they flit around kind of like a chickadee. Just make sure I put it that the kinglet reminds me of that. The trees in front of me remind me of a fire, bright fire. They're very bright yellow. Ooh, so I'm observing now a golden crown kinglet instead, which is a different species, also very, very cool. I could actually see the golden crown on him. And so I'm now going to add this golden crown kinglet down here. See if I can fit him in here. He was actually in a very similar pose to the first pose I got down from the other species, from the ruby crown kinglet. But the main difference between these species is that this golden crown kinglet, he had 2 black stripes and a yellow stripe on the middle of his head. And so sometimes it's fun to do just kind of a side-by-side of the different species that you're seeing. This is a fun activity to do if you're comparing 2 different things. And so you can see I have my light blue framework down here. Sorry if that's a little hard to see. And then I'm just drawing my kinglet in on top of that. So again, I have my drawing down here, and so I can add some written notes to augment this. And so these are kind of all the basic elements of a journal page. I have my observations, my questions, my connections, and I'm using the 3 languages of drawing, writing, and I also have some numbers in here. Okay. Another way I could incorporate numbers is I could write down all the species I'm doing. Probably won't do that today, but if I'm doing like a serious birding trip, I want to catalog everything that I'm seeing, I will often use a list of species. So I will often add color to my drawings. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I find that it's a lot of fun. And so you can see here I have a watercolor palette that's portable, it folds up. These cakes are all dry and they're activated with water. I also use this Pentel Augwash water brush. It has a nice tip, pointed tip for painting details, or you can do large washes with it. And it has the water in the handle, and so that's really great for doing field work because you don't have to carry around a jar of dirty water with you everywhere you go. Just give it a little bit of a squeeze, wipe it on a rag. I usually use just an old sock. And with watercolors, you want to start light to dark. They're kind of a hard medium to use, so I would recommend finding lots of tutorials before you try them out yourself. Otherwise, you're probably going to get frustrated pretty easily. So usually I will add the shadows in first when I'm doing watercolors. This is a brightly lit sunny day, and so I'm just going to add shadows in here that are relatively bold. And then the tails were sort of a darker olive color. Carefully painting in the wings so I preserve the white details. I want to make sure those get into my drawing. I'm going to make the top a little bit darker, so I'm going to add some more olive color. I have some color put on here. This isn't an essential step, but I like to do it because it's fun. You can also use color pencils if you're not as comfortable with watercolor. I also will sometimes add kind of the background that my birds are in. So for this kinglet here, I'm going to add some background to him, just to kind of show sort of the habitat that it was in. one more thing that I like to add to my journal pages is metadata. And so that can be anything from the date to the weather, location. It's important to add this to every page because it helps to kind of contextualize your observations within the wider natural world. And it also helps you remember, oh, where was I when I saw that kinglet? Or what time of day was it? Okay, those can maybe help to answer some of your questions that you come up with later. And so here I'm just going to write, this is at Washington Crossing Historic Park. The date is November 2nd. And the weather is very sunny. Sometimes I'll just put a sun icon, but it's not super cold and not super warm. You can also put in the temperature. So right now it's 60 degrees. And the time of day is about noon. Okay. And there you go. So that's a completed journal page. You can always come back and add stuff later, or start a new page if you see other cool stuff. And again, I might think of other cool things that I want to add to this later, but for now, I'm pretty happy with this. So, I hope this video was helpful in introducing you to the practice and process of nature journaling. You can absolutely start keeping your own journal, no matter your artistic ability or talent. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel for more nature journaling and sketching related content. Thanks for watching.